This week, we are going to be learning about your five senses during our science class, your five main senses. Now, there's a sense that has to do with your spatial recognition and moving around, but we're going to address the five main senses, which are sight, hearing, touch, smell, and taste. Those senses help us to understand the world around us, be able to see, hear, smell, taste, feel what's going on. Also, make sure that we stay safe and that we are able to learn more and recognize people and things and smells. The first one we're going to start off with is touch. It's considered to be the first sense that humans develop, that they have some sort of feeling, and that has to do with your brain getting signals from the cells on your skin. So your skin receives different signals depending on what kind of touch is happening. That could be a pressure, which is like pushing down. It could be a temperature of hot or cold. It could be a very soft or light touch. It could be a vibration of things moving back and forth quickly. You could also have a touch of pain, or other sensations that might happen. You might have your arm fall asleep and you have that tingly feeling. All of those things are, brought into our brain and we figure out what to do with them. We may, if we're getting pinched, like in this case, you would feel that pressure, but maybe somebody pushes a little bit harder and then it turns into a painful sense. Down here is where your nerves are. So this is your epiglottis. That's the top layer of your skin, the middle part of your skin, the little bit deeper part of your skin. So if you get like a little cut that doesn't really bleed very much, that means your epidermis has been scratched. If it gets down deeper, it might be into your dermis. If it gets even lower, you'd have to have stitches. So this is what your skin would look like if we were looking at it from the side, inside of it. You have different types of nerve endings. Some of them have to do with, like this one, has to do with the feeling of hot or cold. So you know if you need to put on a jacket or maybe even, get inside air conditioning if you're overheating. That is also where if you touch a stove, you would know to put your hand away really quickly before being burnt. Any kind of touch, even if it's a lighter touch, is going to be felt through these types of nerves. And then you've also got pain receptors, as you see if it's deeper. Does not mean that you have to have it, all the way down deep for it to feel it, but that's where those sensors are. And then also the pressure sensors, like we talked about. So if you have somebody pushing on you or somebody pinching against you, or it might just be that you're sitting down, you realize that you're sitting down. Your sight is what you see through your eyes. Your brain is also working, with all these senses, your brain is working with your eye in this place, and it looks at the light. And what we see when we see color is actually just different refractions of light. And so your brain is able to determine what those are. You've learned over the course of your life what the name is for different things and different people. If you would lose your sight, then your other senses actually like go in overdrive and they are able to, work even better so that you can compensate for the lack of vision. This is what it would look like if you're looking at an apple. This is a close up of your eye. And, as a fourth grader, you don't need to know all of these things, but just the idea that, your eye senses what it is, it sends those signals into your nerves, into your brain. And your brain has the visual cortex. That's the part of your brain. If you feel the very back of your head, that's where your vision is controlled at. And so your eyes works with your brain very quickly so that you know what things are. So you're not, if I'm looking around a room, I'm not having to think that is a chair, that is a table, that is a window. My brain just automatically knows that. Hearing is what allows you to hear music, conversation, and sounds. We hear through our ears, and those signals from our ears are sent into our brain. Our ears also help with balance. So if you have an ear infection, you get really dizzy, or if somebody has a problem with their ears, they could have some balance issues, like as they get older. You have three sections of your ear: the outer ear, which is what you see, the middle ear, and then the inner ear, which is towards your brain. All sound happens because of vibrations, and sound waves are caused by vibrations. Your brain actually is able to turn those waves and those vibrations into a sound. And we have little hairs inside of our cochlea, and our cochlea is it looks like a little snail shell, and it's inside of our brain, and that's how our ear, or inside of our ear, I mean, and that's how we're able to hear. So if somebody is deaf, they might have some issues with a cochlea or not have one. Could get an implant to help them hear, but many people who are hard of hearing or who are deaf um, don't always want that, and that's okay. So that cochlea has those tiny hairs inside, and that's what they vibrate. They start moving, and then that creates a nerve signal into your brain. So if you're listening to music really, really loud, like through earbuds or headphones or even just with speakers, that can actually damage those hairs, and you don't get new hairs. So the problem is we're seeing more and more young people with hearing damage, and that's something you can't get back. So that's a normal thing as you get older, as somebody gets in their 70s and 80s, there's hairs start to die off and don't work anymore. And so that's why people that are older have trouble hearing. But as a young person, you want to protect your hearing and you want to make sure that those hairs are protected. This is what your ear would look like close up. So if a sound's coming in, this is the part you see. But as the sound's coming in, you hit the tympanic membrane, and which is sometimes we have our eardrum, and then it goes through all these little bones. Those are actually the smallest bones in our body. The smallest is called the stapes. And this is that cochlea and where all those little hairs are. And so you see those little hairs down here, and those give us those impulses and those sounds traveling to our brain. And we have our auditory part of our brain. We'll see later what the brain looks like farther away. But you don't want to stick anything into your ear because you can actually damage this here. And you also want to make sure that you are, again, not listening to stuff really, really loud. Smell is a pretty cool idea because we can smell potentially over 1 trillion scents. Our olfactory cleft, which is in on the top of our nasal cavity, which is right next to the part of our smelling part of our brain, it has those nerve endings, and that's what transmits the smells right to our brain. We have 400 smelling receptors um, in that area, and our brain is able to determine the various smells, whether they're good, bad, or in between. Our brain is able to process those and usually make sense of who they are or what they are. Um, and that's a sense that really brings back memories. There's people who maybe have had a loved one gone, passed away for a long, long time, and they smell maybe a perfume or something that person wore, and they can remember that, and it brings them back to that memory. As you get older, your ability to smell decreases, which also impacts your ability to taste as well. You smell obviously through your nose, and those neurons, those little nerves there, travel through, that's that olfactory nerve there, and it travels into your brain, and your brain is able to process those smells. We have 5 different tastes. They used to only say 4: salty, sweet, sour, and bitter, and now there's also a umami, which is also called savory. So we talk about salty, that's like, pretzels, things that have a lot of salt on them, they have that certain flavor. Um, and sweet, more like a candy, sugary flavor. Also, fresh fruits and things. Sour is, you know what sour is. It's when, it makes you pucker up. So citrusy things and sour candies and, those kinds of things. Bitter is in a very, very dark chocolate or a coffee. Most people don't like the flavor of bitter, especially when you're young. Savory is, something like a meat or something where it's that um, thick, rich flavor. Uh, and you might have 1 or 2 things you prefer over others, and as you get older, your taste and what you like will change. There may be even some other flavors that we haven't known, and there's other most flavors can fall into those categories, and when we think about spicy, it's not actually a taste, it's considered a pain signal in your mouth, so your mouth is actually finding that painful. You might not mind it, but it is still a pain receptor. Um, we have, adults have 2 to 4,000 taste buds. Kids, you can look up how many you have. Most of those are on your tongue, and that's how you figure out what things taste like. But there's also some in the back of your throat and even in your nose and esophagus, the tube that goes down into your stomach, but most of them are on your tongue. And your smell is very important to the taste. That's why if you have a stuffy nose, things don't taste as good as they normally would. It's a picture of a tongue. So those little bumps are all your taste buds. You also have the back of your throat has some taste buds and things, and this is what one looks like up close, kind of weird looking. In your brain, you have all the different parts of your brain have different things they're responsible for. Not just these five senses; they're for a whole bunch of things. So, seeing, also called vision, taste, touch, smell, and hearing. And so, this is your brain stem here. This is the front of your brain and the back of your brain, if that helps you understand where things are. So, this is what your brain would look like if you could take it out and look at it and see what it does. I hopefully you learned something today about your five senses and maybe even have some questions. You can feel free to Google those questions and look those up. And I can't wait to hear what you have to say.